Hello, thank you everyone for coming. We are very excited that you're here today. We always appreciate the time that you guys spend to take the energy to learn more about the rental industry. I think we can all help make it better, work together to support each other as well. My name is Kaycee. I'm that marketing girl and one of the owners of Rentec Direct. And as I mentioned, and as you can see, we're here with our other owner and Rentec Direct's original founder and the inventor of the software, Nathan. Are you ready to get started today, Nathan? How are you doing?
Yeah, absolutely. This is some important stuff. So yeah, let's get to it.
So again, a little bit more about me and Nathan. We're the owners of Rentec. Like I said, we're real estate investors. We're also developers. We worked on a couple build to sell properties and build to rent properties. Totally different game than if you're just like buying and selling rental properties. And Nathan started Rentec in 2007, and I've been working with Rentec since 2014. So thanks again for everyone who's here today. Nathan, anything you want to add about your real estate background or about Rentec?
All I'm thinking about is that picture that's on the page there, and that had to have been a golf day. And so I'll just add to that occasionally we like to play a little bit of golf.
Yeah, and occasionally we get to play golf for work. So that was a fundraiser that we did for veterans. That's where that one came from. So, and I also, beyond thanking all of you guys for coming here today, I really want to thank Nathan for letting me tap him to be part of this webinar. Nathan's favorite thing to do in the world is code and program Rentec Direct and help improve the software for you guys. So if he could just be there coding right now, he would be so happy. But I think one of the reasons we're so successful is because we're really involved in real estate news, what the market's doing, and trying to engage with our clients and our community as much as possible. So Nathan's always happy to do these types of things, but I do know that he has to manage his time as well. So thanks, Nathan, for being here today for everyone who gets to participate.
It's okay. I actually woke up early this morning, so I got to review some code before coffee and during coffee this morning. Kind of reminded me of the old days when I started Rentec. So I made up for it by waking up early. So yeah. I'm super happy to be here.
He's constantly coding, which is excellent. Okay, so now I'm going to get into the juice of our conversation as we head into talking about what a cooling rental market is. So I have some ideas up here too, but Nathan, you want to kind of elaborate on what a cooling rental market could mean?
Yeah, I think just in basic definition is vacancy rates are rising among rentals. And as a result of that, vacancies are on the market longer.
I'm going to share some of the data that's coming out about like why we're even having this conversation about a cooling rental market, and what that means and why people might be concerned about it. So Apartment List always has some rental data that gets published every month, and then it was making a lot of headlines in the end of this past year because it was talking about how rent has been declining steadily for the past 5 months. And that the median rent prices have nationally gone down 3% compared to, or 1.3% compared to a year ago. And year over year rent growth has been negative for more than 2 full years. So Nathan, when you hear data like this, or when you see news reports of saying like, rents are decreasing, rents are falling, what does that make you think? And how do you feel about that in terms of a cause for concern?
Yeah, I guess I'll start off by saying this data shows a drop of, 1.3%, and across our entire portfolio of all of our property managers, we're seeing still an increase of about 3%. So there's a little bit of a difference there. And oh, there you are, full screen. But I think we can talk about that more. But overall, I am seeing higher vacancy rates. Just in our town and what I see nationwide, vacancy rates are up a bit. Seeing rentals on the market longer. I'm also seeing landlords starting to offer some concessions. And as a result of that, I think tenants are starting to realize as the market shifts a little bit that they have an option to negotiate a little bit. But what this is kind of creating is a more balanced market, which might freak some people out, especially if you've only been in property management for about 10 years. But it's actually kind of getting back to the normal balance that it was, 10, 15 years ago when I started doing this. It was a lot harder to advertise and rent your properties than it is to today, or over the last few years at least. But I'll say what it's not. It's rents are not collapsing, and the demand is not going away. Rents are here long term. People always need a place to live, so it's no reason to panic whatsoever. And property ownership is still a good investment. So that's kind of my high level thoughts on it.
Yeah, and it's interesting to think about too. Like, sure, rents can go up at different rates, and they might drop a little bit or stabilize a little bit. But when you look at long term of real estate and rent prices, you can see that long-term growth, and trying to focus on 1 month at a time, 1 year at a time can really give you a narrow view, when real estate and especially rental housing investing can be a long-term strategy. And so as landlords and housing providers and investors, if we think about that and feel confident in that, then we know that we can see this news, approach a cooling market, approach a stabilizing market with confidence. And so what are some of those things that like could be even driving the stabilization as we think about the rate of change that we've seen over the past couple of years, or vacancies increasing or being on the market a little bit longer?
Yeah, well, first off, I think you make a really good point. Those of us who've been in real estate, you realize real estate isn't a 1 year, a 3 year, even a 5 year process. We're looking out further than that. And even in past market collapses, some of the worst ones that we've had in history, if you look at the long-term return, even if you bought the day it collapsed or the day before it collapsed and you paid the most for a property and it came way down, they've all come back up. So they've all turned out to be good investments, even people that bought, folks that bought during the collapse. So related to rentals in specific, things that are causing this, I think wages are a big one. Wages just are not keeping up with rents. That's not necessarily the landlord's fault at all. The media might spin it a different way, but that's a big one. We're also seeing a lot of incentives for building houses, which is bringing more inventory on the market. So I'm seeing incentives coming from the federal government, state government, even local governments. They're all pushing to build more housing in many areas of the country. Specifically our area, we've had a housing crisis, and I think they even call it a housing state of emergency in Oregon for a long time, but a lot of other states have the same thing going on. So those incentives are driving more building to happen and making it more affordable to build. So we're seeing a lot of multifamily come into the market. I think also home sellers are choosing to rent their houses instead because they're staying on the market too long. With interest rates the way they are, we're seeing buyers are a little more timid and houses aren't selling as fast. I see for sale signs in front of houses for months instead of days now. And sellers kind of get frustrated with a house not selling. And so they're turning to renting it more often now these days.
Yeah, I wonder how that will impact rent prices. And because I'm thinking of even a house that I'm familiar with in our community that was on the market for a really long time, and they just put it for rent, and it is a very high rent price. And so it's almost a home that wouldn't make a traditionally good rental is now getting rented, and that could really inflate our local rent prices if someone actually rents it, or if they're going to have to then decrease their posted rent or give a rent concession in order to get it occupied. So like you said, those houses, how they're getting that traditionally would be primary residence are now becoming residential rental properties, and how that can impact these prices as well.
So yeah, I think it's just pushing, I think it's just pushing more supply onto the market. And instead of a home buyer moving from somewhere to live in a home that they own, it goes as a rental. And oftentimes it teaches that would-be seller who's selling the house, like, oh, I can actually have a monthly recurring income on this house. And that example in our neighborhood is probably not a great one for that particular scenario, but some houses that, rent for the median rents in the area, once that owner sees that recurring revenue come in, they might just change their mind, not sell it at all and keep it as a rental. So that's going to be based a lot on interest rates. And if interest rates come down, we're going to see fewer conversions to rentals. If they stay higher, that trend might continue.
Yeah, definitely. And so like this apartment list data is saying that they are seeing rents dropping. I'm curious to hear from our audience here what your guys' experience is. So I'm going to throw up a different poll to share. Oh, I didn't get it ready. I'm so sorry. I'm ill prepared. So I guess we'll just have Nathan share his. But like, have you ever had to offer, or like, what's happening with our rents right now? And are they decreasing? Are they increasing?
Yeah, I would say rents are still increasing. Every year they go up a little bit, but they're not going up as much. We used to see, a few years ago, rents would be going up 8 to 10%, and that was very typical. In fact, Oregon even created some rent control laws. It's one of the first rent control laws in the country that covers the entire state to help prevent rents from going more than 10%. I think that's the cap now. And but that rent control actually is a good point, because we have, in our particular portfolio, and a lot of other people are going to have similar situations in cities and counties that have rent control elsewhere, is there's properties that fall under market rent. And even though the properties that are being listed, they might not be being listed with a higher rent value, but sorry, I'm getting, there's an alarm going off out there, so it's distracted me. But let's see, so they may not be being listed on average for new rentals as a lot higher, but you have landlords that are trying to catch up. So if you have a property like we have in Oregon that rents for $1,000, market rent should be $1,500, but Oregon won't let us get there because 10% is the max. So we raise it to $1,100, and that makes that percentage a little bit smaller. Long-winded answer to that, but would also like to kind of follow up on the wage. Actually, I'm going to skip that because the alarm's driving me crazy.
Okay. Well, so
it might go off in just a minute. Hopefully not everyone else can.
I wonder car alarms going on right now. So I thought I had prepped a poll for everyone about if your rents are going up the same over the past year, or if you've had to collect less rent. And I know vacancy can impact your like overall rent that you've collected, but if you guys want to even like put it in the questions tab and come through as a statement like, oh, our rents have done this, I'd love to get that feedback from you, and I can even share it real time as it comes through, because I think it's pretty interesting. I think we've been pretty lucky in that we haven't had to offer any rent discounts or collect less rent. We have had to, when we put some properties on the market, the expected rent when they were new inventory, we had to list it lower than we were expecting, but it never changed like our overall rent decreasing because they were brand new properties to begin with. So, and we'll kind of share a little bit more about those rent concessions that we have had to make. So I do want to share some rent data of like what we've seen, because Rentec Direct does have, we've been able to aggregate some data to kind of share about the industry. And so we published in last year, it was a market rent trends report where we looked at what the rent prices look like across the nation. And this is going to be on collected rent. So we've actually seen, and I think we can follow up with a link to this. Oh, it might have just popped up on your screen as a little pop-up that says, with a button that says the rent trends report, if you guys are able to open that and check it out. And of course I can follow up with this. But this was the state of the rent report. And you can see there's a graph in there that shows over the years how much rent has increased across the nation. This is data based on over 250,000 properties of collected rent. And it's gone up from, 4%, 6%, 8%, 6%, 4%. Last year, we were able to just yesterday pull data from 2025. It's gone up 3% compared to 2024. So I think what this demonstrates is there's an increase, but yes, a stabilization, because, it started in 2022, there was an 8% increase from the year before. And then it was a 6% increase, and then a 4, and then a 3. So even though it's increasing, we can definitely see that trend of it stabilizing. And so why do you think, Nathan, like our data is a little bit different than what like Apartment List is saying, where they're like, look, these rents are declining, versus we're showing that rents are actually increasing overall across the country?
Yeah, I think apartment lists, they're looking at listing data, what people are actually advertising vacancies for. And that's going to be a little different from our data, which is what is actually being collected. And that can come across multiple ways. But I was mentioning it earlier, a month-to-month rental that is going up, that might be catching up on rent, is going to have a higher increase than one that's being listed out there new in like rent controlled states. So I think that's one big reason. I think also apartment list, they have bulk of multifamily properties within their listings, and our clients are a mixture, lots of multifamily, lots of single family. So when we add in the single family to it, I think that changes the numbers a little bit. And yeah, that's probably the main reasons.
Yeah, I think that's an important distinction: collected rent versus advertised rent, and then the only doing multifamily versus a different spread of portfolios and properties. And so even if we're not seeing tremendous like dropping, it's still stabilizing, it's still cooling. So how does this like impact landlords and property managers and housing providers?
Well, for me, I think of it as just a general business decision. When you see any market cooling in any business, you need to prepare for it. You batten down the hatches, you cut any expenses you can. You just prepare. I mean, you prepare for the worst, even though this probably isn't the worst, but you prepare for it anyways. So I think about your operational costs and how you can be more efficient. Now's the time to do it before it gets worse. And to summarize that, you as an organization want to be able to manage more units with less overhead. And overhead could be anything that costs you money, anywhere you're spending money or time, that's overhead. So you want to figure out how to reduce that now, so you're prepared and you don't have to do it last minute.
So, and this is kind of like what I also really wanted to talk about, like make people feel confident that these news reports aren't scary when you see like rents are dropping, markets cooling. But if they are, we can always think about how to manage our operations efficiently and what are some strategies. So let's share some strategies about ways to do this, to be efficient, to focus on operation costs. If you're not able to raise the rent dramatically because the market doesn't support it, what can you do in your business to make sure that your operations can be streamlined?
Well, it's a good thing we're a software company that works with property managers. My first bit of advice is use all the features of your software. And I see a lot of our clients, they'll sign up for online payments and they'll use it for online payments and that's it. But there's a lot more to the software than online payments or maintenance. What each one of the features in the software, of which there's hundreds, they're going to save you operational time. And just to name a few, everyone should be, if you're not doing online payments, that's an obvious one. Work orders, using the work order system, letting tenants post work orders via the tenant portal or the Resident Connect app is a good one. It's a time saver. Right now it's 1099 season, right? And Rentec makes it super easy to electronically file all your 1099s. It's literally a couple clicks and all that work is done. Vacancy syndication. Please make sure you're using that. That gets vacancies filled faster and it gets it out to all the different syndicated sites like Zillow and apartments.com. So you can get your properties filled faster, which means less work, less showings. And then I'll throw it out there because it's new, is we're always about saving time. And we've been finding property managers saving a ton of time using the new AI invoice scanner. It's really cool. It takes a 2-minute process of entering an invoice into the system down to a few seconds. It does it all, reduces errors and everything. So I think, yeah, number one, use all the features of your software. And then I'm also thinking in this coming year, there's lots of new AI ideas coming out that are going to be helping property managers in our industry and many other industries as well. But be looking at what these systems are and which ones might be able to help you the most. And Rentec is going to be behind the scenes helping you integrate with those any of those popular systems that are good time savers too.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of the point. Like, yes, it's a sales pitch for Rentec, but it's really about like efficiency. Like being more efficient means you have more time to focus on ways to grow your business. If you're spending too much time with like manual entry, routine tasks, repetitive tasks, that's time that you could spend towards attracting new clients if you're a property manager, analyzing deals, working on a landlord-tenant relationship that could result in a lease renewal, or ways to kind of like grow your operations that can focus on that growth and not focusing on the busy work. And so using software, whether it's Rentec or other tools like Nathan was mentioning, other AI tools that can help you get a lot more done in the time that we have. And
Yeah,
go ahead.
I would just say, as you look at your day if you have employees, as you look at their day, what are they spending the most time on? And that's a great place to look right now, is where all that time is being spent. And is there a more efficient way to do that? There often is. Most property managers tend to, if something's working really well, especially when the market's hot and there's no trouble, filling vacancies, if it's working well, change is kind of something that gets pushed off to the back burner. But just look at that time spent, see if it can possibly be more efficient, and start taking some action now.
And that's something that we even think about at Rentec, is like, how can we make the time and the software more efficient for our clients? And I know Jackie was thinking of this idea, is like, is there a way to find out like where our clients are spending? Jackie's on our in the marketing department. She's our tech writer. So where are people spending time in the software the most? What are they doing in that part of the software? And how can we improve the user experience so they can find the information that much quicker, so they can streamline their operation? So it's stuff that we think about too, is how we can help you guys using Rentec so you can accomplish these goals and keep growing and working on stuff that you want to. And when I think about, like, it's not just about your operations costs and saving money that way, but like also, what are you marketing in order to sell your services as a property manager, or attract the right tenants to your properties, fill those vacancies quicker? And one of the things that Apartment List was talking about is what they were in the data that they published, is that they were noticing that rental ads have a lot more rent concessions in them. So we think about rent concessions, that's like offering a one-time rent discount for someone who might be signing the lease, or reducing a security deposit, offering a rent reduction, so you're actually lowering the total monthly rent price. Maybe you offer a cash bonus or a gift card, or give away a prize. What kind of rent concessions have you had to do, Nathan, as a landlord?
Yeah, I think the basic ones, we've had to lower rent a little bit. That was more to meet market expectations than a concession, because it was a new property that just thought we were going to get a little more rent for it than we did. We had to, kind of come down a little bit to meet the market. But in the past, had to do discounts and non-traditional rentals, like having a small business occupy a property, whereas it just wasn't a consideration before. But there was 3 units that were available, and I really wanted to get them filled. So small business had a compelling reason to be there that wasn't going to be intrusive to the neighbors. So move forward with that.
Yeah, and I'm thinking of the other one that was, I feel like, more of a concession for us as rental managers, but changing our pet policy to make it more attractive to renters. I know we have traditionally always been a pet-free environment in our rental properties, and we had to accept pets. And now we're back to no pets at our properties, or just like a lot stricter rules. So I know with so many renters owning pets these days, if we can accommodate pets in a way that is very strictly laid out, and then you follow up with your documented lease violations if they're not following the rules, then that can really open up your tenancy pool and reduce that vacancy time on market.
It does. I think I've heard that 70% of the rental market has pets. It's a huge number. So when you don't accept pets, you eliminate 70% of that market, which is tough. When you do accept pets, you tend to have more problems or management issues with those units. So you're kind of trading, a faster or a smaller vacancy period for a little bit more management time down the road. So you kind of have to weigh the pros and cons on pets.
Yeah,
we could probably do a whole webinar on pets.
Sure, we could. And then a private conversation about ESAs. So
what we're allowed to say on a webinar.
Yeah. I'm going to post a poll for you because I do have this one primed. And this one is curious about from our audience if they have ever done a rent concession and what that looked like. So I remember, besides the one that we personally do, I remember when I was in college, the leasing season when I was in college would always start in February for leases that started in September. And there's an apartment complex that would give away like a free TV, and then they'd offer free internet and cable. And so like as a college student with a limited budget, like not having those utility expenses and getting a free TV, that was amazing. So I definitely lived at that property like 2 years, and I did sign my lease early in February. So it was effective. So I've seen people responding with they've given a one-time rent discount or they've reduced their monthly rent, and some people who have never had to give a rent concession, which is awesome. That is great to hear. And then some people who have done some other sort of strategy. So thanks for that feedback. I love getting this real-time input and engagement from you guys.
I love the TV idea, Kaycee. I was just looking at
TVs.
Yeah, I just I've been watching, there's inflation numbers, and one of the most expensive things these days is housing and rent. That's gone up the most like in the last 5 to 10 years, but something that's come down the most in 5 to 10 years is TVs. You can get TVs for less than you would have paid, 5 years ago. So that's totally different.
I mean, I think TVs back then cost as much as like my monthly rent was. So like split as a roommate situation. So I totally, and then that's a total write-off, which could be interesting.
Now you can get a 50-inch TV for $300. Have it sitting in there. Almost any tenant would be super excited to have their own 50-inch TV show up with their property. That's a pretty cheap concession.
Definitely. One of the other things that I think that people are talking about, or I'm hearing this trend come up, so I'm curious about like some of your feedback too, is this idea of a resident benefit package or a renter benefit package. I know we're talking a lot about it in the marketing department and how we can like tell people about it and inform them about it. But basically a resident or renter benefit package is a fictional idea, or not a fictional, but this like conceptual idea of all these things that you can offer your tenants that make it sound like you have a value add to them renting from you. So this can include opportunities for them to get renter's insurance, pet insurance, using credit building services that you might have, online portals to submit maintenance requests, ways to build that landlord-tenant relationship, automated payments. Maybe you even have a relationship with local retailers where your tenants can get a discount. And so these are all things that like especially Rentec landlords already have access to, and then they can tell their tenants and use those features within their software to actually market value add services to their potential tenants, current tenants, and really attract their next qualified renters and build that relationship and work towards that long-term tenancy with your great tenants who want to use things like renter's insurance and credit building with like rent reporters and pay their rent on time. So that can be a great way to look at this new trend, this buzzword in the industry, and use the tools that you already have. What are your thoughts on these resident benefit packages and renter benefit packages?
Yeah, I guess so. We've been doing a lot of this stuff for many years. Renter's insurance is available via the tenant portal. You can help tenants build their credit by reporting rent to the credit bureaus for them. So we're offering a lot of these things. We get approached by a ton of resident benefit package like providers, and most of them are, well, I would say a lot of them are very intrusive. They want to email your tenants. They want to, they just want to be like in everybody's face, promoting their products. And in my opinion, it's been a little bit spammy. And I usually recoil and back off from anything that feels that way. You'll notice we never do ads in our software, on our blog, anywhere. Very anti-ad. And when companies are coming to me and they feel like they're kind of gimmicky or addy, we usually don't move forward with them. So or recommend them. So that's kind of where I'm at on that stuff. I think the good ones we want to integrate into our software, and we have already. And I would be curious from our clients, what are ones, what's something that your tenants might want that we could make easier in the software? like filters. That's a big one. Tenants should be replacing their filters every few months. And I know there's services out there that will ship filters, and landlords or property managers can be involved in that process, and even maybe make a little bit of a profit on that process. So I'd be curious from everybody what your tenants are asking for, what you want to offer, because we want to make that easy for you.
Yeah, and it's I guess my takeaway from this too is what do you have that you can use as a value add, that you can market as a value add to your tenants when you're attracting new people to your property. So maybe you already have essentially the makeup of a resident benefit package or a renter benefit package at your disposal if you're a Rentec client, where you can say, oh yeah, look at all these things that you offer, and you don't have, it's just one program. You don't even have to sign up for lots of other things. You can just get it through your software as one of my renters and residents. So, and as we talk a lot about like marketing these properties and attracting tenants so you can fill your vacancies and collect your rents and make your income that way, what are some other ways that you can protect your profitability as your rent stabilize in this market?
Yeah, can I make a pitch for tenant screening here?
Yes, we love tenant screening. Tenant screening is the most important.
I would just say, just in general, tenant screening is part of the process. Pick really good tenants. We've been very fortunate with most of our properties and gotten mostly good tenants. But when you just get one that causes a problem, it can erase months and months and months of profit for both you, and if you're managing for an owner, it can erase months and months of their profit. And properties often don't have a budget for losing that much profit. So upfront, screening your tenants really, really well, making sure they haven't had past evictions or criminal problems or don't have dangerous dogs, things like that are super important in the beginning of the process, because it'll save you more than almost any other change you can make.
Yeah, tenant screening is always our number one advice when anyone asks us, like, what's the most important thing they need to know about being a landlord, or they just bought their first rental property. And some of the other things that I think are a good way to think about protecting your profits, maintaining your current operational costs, is consider online rent payments. They have been proven with data. We actually just published another report about this, is that renters that use online payments and set up automated payments are more likely to pay rent on time. And that means they're getting less late fees, and then you're collecting your rental income on time as well. And so when I think about like, well, how do you get someone to actually sign up for online rent payments and start using it? It's free for tenants in the Rentec Direct portal, but they still have to, commit to doing that if they're so used to writing a check or something. So that could be something that you could also offer, like a mini concession on, like, oh, I'll give you a gift card if you sign in and start using the tenant portal for online payments.
Or a TV.
Or a TV. Yeah, but think about like a $15 gift card just to make an online payment that's free. Like, that seems so worth it. And that's one of those things that when someone uses it one time, gets confidence in the system, they're going to use it every time. So I love how easy online payments are. And I love that we have data to support that online payment legitimately reduces late fees, or the occurrence of late fees. And it is becoming more popular. We've seen in the past 5 to 10 years, the shift has been that it's just growing in trend of more people are comfortable making online rent payments specifically, and more comfortable using those digital payment options for rent payments. Any other ideas for protecting these profitabilities outside of tenant screening, online rent payments?
Yeah, online rent payments is huge. I was going to say, as you're talking there, even my mom uses it, and that's kind of one of the last people I thought that would do it. So pretty cool. I think anyone can do it. It has been a check-driven generation for a long time, but we're moving past that, and most people are open to it now. Yeah, I would say, keeping, I don't know, just documenting everything, making sure, I guess in my head, I'm thinking about like lease violations and how to deal with things that are unprofitable. A tenant who doesn't pay rent or has violations consistently, that takes a lot of your time. And time, is money, and being, careful in documenting that process, making sure that every single violation is documented well. So if you do have to take the next step, you have all that documentation, at your fingertips.
Yeah, I know in Oregon, if you don't do the lease violation documentation a specific way in the right timeline, that it can just make a eviction process take that much longer if someone doesn't pay rent, and they can live rent-free in your property for months before you can get granted that eviction from the court. So that lease documentation is very important. One of the other things I like to think about too is, I kind of mentioned this before, is working towards those lease renewals and the long-term tenants and your landlord-tenant relationship, because obviously it takes energy to go through tenant turnover. That takes money, posting vacancies, dealing with that. So if you can maintain that long-term tenants and engage with your tenants, especially in this era of AI-driven tools, and we're all talking about automation and efficiency, there actually, again, there's been more research coming out of and reports about how people are craving that interpersonal relationship. And the same is true for landlords and tenants. So some of you guys might have been part of our landlord renter research that we were conducting over the past couple of years. We were working with a professor at MIT to kind of look at the landlord tenant relationship, specifically how it helped with negotiating leases. And we were able, that was a long time of collecting data, and it's finally in the early stages of getting published. So we just got some permission to share some preliminary data, but through that of getting input from over 9,000 renters, landlords, property managers, one of the biggest themes that came out is renters that had in-person conversations with their landlord or property manager had a better perception of the relationship going into the lease. And one of the things we're going to be able to study long-term is to see how long those tenants stayed in the property. And if that initial great perception due to those conversations and interactions actually resulted in longer-term tenancies. So that's one of those longitudinal studies that we'll get to keep adding to and figuring out as we look at how long those leases last. So we're all about landlord-tenant relationships here. We love our renters, and we appreciate the property managers and landlords that support that relationship too, and all that work you can do. And I say in-person conversations, and I just mean like it could be on the phone or face-to-face or like a video chat, but something that's like real time, not just like automated messaging or just simple text back and forth, but really showing that value that you have for their time and yours. And I know it's hard. We're all so busy, and it's frustrating when, you get no shows to appointments and interviews and stuff like that. But as much as we can put into it to really find that great tenant, that's our goal.
Yeah, I guess I had a takeaway from that, some of that preliminary research also, in that the bidirectional communication was one of the biggest things that seems to support that trend, where bidirectional, like voice communication, either in person or on the phone, tend to have the highest impact where that relationship, that bond kind of settles. And having more than one, like 2 or 3 tended to be, I think, the sweet spot. And so for the property managers that have done that, they built a much better bond, or there's some technical terms for it, with their tenant that creates a better relationship. And that better relationship might be resulting in a longer term tenancy, better communication about maintenance issues. There's some great information that we're getting out of that already.
Yeah, I'm thinking of those like personalized relationships and engaging with your tenants, and maybe you want to engage with your owner clients as well to help strengthen relationships throughout your business. And I wanted to share, this actually came out of an idea of a webinar we did last summer from one of our clients, Norbert. He was asking, like, would there be a way to find out if a tenant or an owner access the portal, so then you could reach out and try and engage with them to maybe use some of those services. And so thanks, Norbert, for that suggestion. That was awesome. And that was something that we were able to implement. So if anyone is curious about how that works, like, of course, reach out to us or Success Team, because that has been a helpful way to figure out how you can reach out to some of your tenants or your clients and reestablish that relationship.
You bet. I think a good piece of that one, and if I remember right, what Norbert was specifically looking for was seeing if owners were logging into their portal and actually looking at their real-time data, and which is a nice way to provide that feedback to owners. And we were able to provide that with, I think it shows up in the info panel on the right, and we also added in a list of logins so people can look at the history of logins as well. So it was a really good idea.
Well, I'm happy to see that Norbert's in this training as well. So hi, Norbert. Thanks for joining us. And he was saying he loves it and uses it. So that's so awesome. And so let's move into some trends that we're seeing shape real estate in 2026. And then maybe with that, we can share what's coming out of Rentec in 2026 before we jump into some questions. So Nathan, what kinds of trends do you see coming, shaping real estate for 2026?
Yeah, I think, I mean, AI is a huge buzzword right now. I mentioned it earlier, but I see tools being released all the time that are AI based that want to save property managers time. Some that go so far is they are working to replace that whole communication cycle between a tenant and a property manager when maintenance issues come up, and they might connect a tenant with, the appropriate vendor or even schedule a maintenance request. And so that's one that comes to mind that could be a big time saver. These are all pretty immature in the market right now, so they're all brand new applications. We haven't seen a lot of results or feedback on them yet, but I do think there's a lot of promise. And if not this year, within the next 2 or 3 years, those are actually going to start to become really good.
And I think like we can also use ChatGPT and Gemini, other AI tools for, analyzing deals and researching, like trying to find new clients, researching ways to connect with your tenants. And also I found it really helpful to get a quick access review of laws in your state. They're getting a lot better at giving accurate information, so you can at least find something out quickly. If you're asking ChatGPT or Gemini, like what's this law in my state or in my county that might affect my rental properties, of course, then you click the link and actually reference the law. So make sure it's up to date and the right thing, but at least gives you that quick answer. That is a lot faster than traditional Google search results from 5 years ago, where you would just get a list of links that you had to go through and read it all. So I've been appreciative of the quick research that we can get for that type of stuff.
Yeah, very helpful. And thanks for mentioning. Always double check. The AIs still hallucinate a little bit and make up some stuff for some reason. If it's a law, you wouldn't think they would hallucinate, but they do. So I would say it's probably 95% accurate right now, but definitely double check. You don't want to be in that 5% and do something wrong.
So I'd love to hear a little what your thoughts are on tenant liability waivers, because I know that's like a new thing coming out. We saw a little bit of it last year in 2025, getting more traction in 2026. So can you share a little bit about what that is and what you see the impact being?
Yeah, I actually love the idea because, I think renter's insurance is a great idea. It defers some of the liability if a tenant makes a mistake off the landlord and the property owner, and also helps the tenant protect some of their property. Well, tenant liability waivers are kind of an evolution of that for tenants that do not get renter's insurance but are supposed to get renter's insurance. The landlord can purchase a policy for them and pay for the policy. And that policy would be that tenant liability waiver policy to provide that same protection for something the tenant might do back to the property owner. Anyways, I like the idea. I think there's a lot of promise. We're looking into it to see if there's a way we can provide that as an option. There's nothing stopping any of our clients from using it right now. If there's a great company that's offering the service, the way it generally works is the tenant doesn't provide their renter's insurance information or proof of renter's insurance, then the property manager can buy the policy, pay for the policy, and then bill the policy back to the tenant, assuming that language is in the lease. And all that's doable in Rentec right now as well.
And so with that, I think I want to transition to my final question for you before we go to our audience questions. But maybe sneak peek into what's coming in 2026 from Rentec that kind of goes along with these trends or these profitability concepts that we've been talking about. What can our clients or the industry look out for what's coming from Rentec that you're working on?
Yeah, we are communicating with some tenant liability waiver companies. If we can integrate with one to make it easier in the software, we will, and make that available right in Rentec. So that's exciting. We're actively researching that. So hopefully something that may come out this year. One that I'm really excited, actually I have two big ones that I'm really excited about. One we've been working on for over a year. It's huge, and it's going to save so much time, is the automated payment allocation for tenant payments. when you post a tenant payment, it'll post the pieces of that payment directly to the invoice that charged them. That way you don't have to look up, what category to post the payments as. It'll happen through the software and through the tenant portal. So that's gonna be a huge time saver. We've been working on it a long time. It's looking really, really good. Definitely something we'll see this year. And the code I was looking at this morning earlier was some of our new code for our upcoming API. And we've been working hard on an open API as well in order to ensure that Rentec can integrate with any platform out there. What that means is if you find a cool AI related program that's on the internet, it's a SaaS program on the internet, and you want to integrate it with Rentec, the answer is always going to be yes, because we're going to have an open API that they can directly connect and read and write data to. So we've been making excellent progress on that, and I expect to see that really soon, probably by Q2 this year.
Excellent. Well, I know we're all excited about that API and definitely the tenant liability and other things coming out of Rentec. I know we're always working on improving accounting and working on user experience, like I said, and I saw some comments and questions come through about places that people are spending a lot of their time to, and they would love to see enhancements to increase efficiency. So thanks everyone for those suggestions. I wanted to now pull it into some of our questions from people who are attending right now. So we did get a question asking about how we feel. You kind of touched on this a little bit, but how you feel about the reliability of the data that comes from places like Zillow and Rental Meter. So I'm thinking that means more like rent payment data and how that accurately reflects what's going on in the market. Rent payment data, I meant like rent price data.
Yeah, I've never seen them to be inaccurate. When I look at the data, it usually comes in pretty close to ours. I see when I was looking at some related to 2025 rent rates, I feel like our client base versus that national set of data was within like $50. So it was like pretty close. I've never really seen one that's super far off. That said, I do think the listing sites like Zillow and stuff, they tend to be, in the past at least, they tend to be a little bit higher because people list their price as a little bit higher and they might rent it a little bit lower than the list rate. So it's a little bit higher than what the reality of the situation is.
Yeah, I think it's a pretty interesting distinction, the advertised rent versus collected rent, and getting like a little bit more accurate of a picture out there. So we did have someone with a Rentec specific question, so I'd love to answer it because I think that you would be able to. So if we're talking about these incentives for like offering a rent discount, Sarah's wondering, so how does that work in the Rentec system? Like if an owner, I'm assuming how she's asking it, if an owner approves the first month being waived or like a $500 off the first month, is there a way to do that in the Rentec system? And is there a simple way?
I think in that particular case, just generate the move-in invoice as usual, and then edit the invoice and reduce it by an amount. You could do it two ways. You could either reduce the rent amount from 1,000 to 500 or whatever your discount might be, or just add a negative line in there, however you prefer to see it on the invoice.
See, it's a trick question to show, not really a trick question, but to prove that Nathan knows how the system works. So he can also do the support. Back in the day, Nathan was all the customer service for the product. So Sarah will make sure to follow up with you directly on how to do that and give you more detailed information.
Yeah, also I'm thinking, as I'm thinking this through, is we offered a new feature about a year ago where you could create your own products. And you can, instead of just having a generic rent product like it's been in history, you can create a different product and name it whatever you will. And you can set it with different prices or different surcharges. And those surcharges, if I'm thinking correctly, they can be negative amounts too. So there's a lot of flexibility in how you want it to work.
Yeah, we like to be flexible and customizable for your particular situation. So going back to our kind of rental makeup, Elizabeth's wondering if we ever offer month-to-month leases. I'm sure she's curious if other people do it too, to help with rentability and what that premium might be, and if we ever experience vacancy during slower months as a result.
Oh, I would say yes and yes. Our area tends to be a month-to-month area. Since we're a smaller city, there's not a whole lot of long-term leases here. You see them here and there, but the bulk of rentals in our particular area, which includes our portfolio, is mostly month-to-month. And what was the second half of that question?
Just experience vacancies during slower months.
Oh, yes, for sure. In winter, and this follows a national trend, we can see move in, move out data across the entire nation in Rentec's data. And we tend to see the same trend that most everyone else does. That summer is a busy month for moving, lots of move-ins in the summer, which means also lots of move-outs. And in the winter, there's fewer people moving. So if you happen to have vacancies in the winter, generally speaking, they're going to be a longer vacancy.
Yeah, and the month-to-month leases, as a comment on that, I grew up in an area when I was first a renter that was very much termed leases. Like finding anything smaller than a year was hard to do. Even 6 months was pretty rare. And then to move to Southern Oregon, where month-to-month was more common. And I heard it as both ways. Like if you did, this was back when we first got into real estate investing, month to month, it was easier to not renew that monthly lease if you had a renter that wasn't following the rules very well, but wouldn't qualify for a traditional eviction. But it's also been the flexibility of a tenant getting used to that and then not wanting to sign a longer term lease. They were like more attracted to the month leases because of the flexibility for their own needs to move quickly if they needed to. Now, Oregon has different rules about when you can not renew a lease or have someone leave. A no cause eviction is what it's called. And then same with giving tenants notice before they move out and how many notice a tenant has to give. So it's changed a lot. And that's also dictated whether month to month or term leases are more attractive in our market. So we have a comment from David. That's kind of an also question about Rentec. So I love that you're talking about saving money with Rentec. Does Rentec have a pre-screening form for prospective tenants to see the owner's rental criteria before requesting a tour or application? This would save so much time for prospective tenants if they could self-screen.
I love the idea. And in fact, I'm just going to I put the important things I want to work on Post-its on my monitor. And this one right here is my mental flow of how a pre-app, rental app, screening, lease agreement, renter's insurance, and ultimately, lease sign in and move in would all happen in our system through like a nice flow like that. So that is a high priority for us because we don't have a pre-screening system right now. What we do have is a rental application that's online, and then the tenant screening aspects that happen right after that rental application, and then we help with the lease process as well. But I want to include that pre-app process as an option in there. That said, nothing saying you can't do that today with like a Google form or something. You could publish a Google form and get those pre-screening questions out of the way. And then if they pass the pre-screening, then forward them the application link. That's how a lot of property managers do it today. We want to make that even easier in the future.
Excellent. Well, that's a positive answer. So we're working on it. And I think I want to do one more question for us. And everyone, thank you so much for the engagement and the questions. And we'll make sure to follow up with you personally with some answers. And I'll probably share more information with you as a follow-up too. So a final one, experience both rentals and new construction for rent. Which do you like most? And if you've ever done flips, how do you compare new construction for sale to fix and flipping?
Yeah, I'm not sure I got the beginning of that.
So with experience doing both rentals and new constructions, like the build to rent construction, which do you like more?
I mean, I like the build to rent. I think renting a brand new property, something that you've had control over, choosing the quality of what's going to go into it, has a lot of meaning to me. I know the renters are getting a good property, and I also know what the property costs, and I know that it was built right, so I have less worries about that property. I think that's that's important for me, and we've seen success in it, so I think I'll choose that one.
Yeah. I think build to rent is excellent, but it's definitely comes with more costs and more risk. So it took us a while to get to that point in our real estate investing career. So we don't necessarily live in a community that has great incentives. Like I know some communities you can get SDCs waived and it can be very easy and attractive to build, but for us it can just be a little bit more expensive. So, but it's been a really fun project for us, especially as we're learning more and making smarter choices and that are helping us meet or maintain our expected profits. So I'm throwing up here on the screen as we wrap up and hit that 1 hour. Here's my contact information, Nathan's contact information, your Rentec Direct support team's contact information. For anyone who's a client, thank you so much for joining us today. We're always here to help you. Anyone who's not a Rentec Direct client, if you ever want to learn more, we're here to help you. We love talking about the industry and of course, how software can help you be successful. I did want to share this as our final thing, last display on the screen. We are launching a Rentec Facebook group, which will be a Rentec Direct support community. This will be a way for you to interact and engage with Nathan and our staff here to ask questions and give input on product development feedback. Nathan mentioned that we're launching this API, so that's one of the ways that he wants to get engagement and support and understanding what people are looking for in terms of the different other softwares or programs out there that could be helpful to work with Rentec. You'll get insight on upcoming features. And what we're really hoping to is this peer-to-peer support. I can see even from this questions tab, all the engagement we had, people talking about what they love the most about Rentec, areas that they could see enhancements and improving time savement and efficiency. So I want to bring this conversation over to that Facebook group where we can all work together and continue to engage. So it's going to be invite only. I'll extend an invite out to all of our registered participants. So look for that in the email. Lots of cool follow-up information coming to you guys. Again, any questions that we didn't get to live, we will definitely be following up with you and bringing it to your inbox soon. Any final words, Nathan, before we say goodbye to our awesome people in this webinar?
Yeah, no, I'm excited about this new community as well. I would invite everybody to join, and if you had a question that you didn't ask or didn't get answered, bring it up in there so we can kind of discuss it as a group. Then you'll get more answers perhaps than just my answer. I'm not always right. I think bringing in the community's input on a lot of these questions is a great thing, and that's kind of one of the reasons that we're excited about this. Also excited to get feedback on some new stuff that we want to do, like the API, for example. What is what are some applications out there that you want to integrate with that might we might need to consider as we're building this API. So this is going to kind of get your ideas up front and center in front of me and our development community by joining and participating. So keep an eye out for that invitation.
Excellent. Well, thank you, Nathan, for your time today. As soon as you're done helping me answer all these awesome questions, then you get to go back to coding. And good luck, everyone, as you prepare your 1099s. I know we all have that deadline coming up here at the end of the month. And we just want to thank everyone again and wish you well on the rest of your day.
Thank you.
Goodbye, you guys. See you next time.